Hi everyone, and welcome to an overview and ranking video on Arkosa. Arkosa is a board game for 1 to 4 players that'll last 1 to 2 hours depending on your player count. In Arkosa, you have a bunker, and you are building out your bunker, rather digging your bunker into the ground, adding things to it, while building a colony of people in your bunker. The planet of Arkosa has fallen to ruin, the resources are scarce, there are people raiding others, and there is a world of hurt going on in the game. So it is up to you to build out your bunker, recruit colonists, and make your bunker the best, so that when a ship comes to Arkosa, you can be declared the best bunker and be the group of people who get to launch off into space into a better world. So let's do a quick overview of how a round works in Arkosa. You'll see up here, I've not put the token out, but there are 3 rounds in Arkosa. After the 3rd round is completed, the best bunker gets to take off into space and is declared victor. The overview of the round goes like follows. You're going to start with a preparation phase where you stock everything onto the board. After that, players take actions. On your turn, you get to take 2 actions, then the next player, and so on, and when it comes back to you, you can take 2 more. When you get to a point when you're out of things to do, then you'll pass. Once everybody has passed, you'll move on to the next phase, which is rations. You're going to have a group of colonists in your hand. You can have a max of 6, and what's going to happen is for every 2 colonists, you have to feed them food and nitrogen. For any colonists that you don't feed, you go down on the morale track. After that, you score points for your morale. In this game, points are called reputation. It's based on these yellow diamonds. And wherever you're at on the morale track, you'll get points. One fun fact about this morale track, when you're at the top and you gain morale, you go up in points. When you're at the bottom and you lose morale, you go down points. The next thing that's going to happen is room production. Whatever you've got built out into your bunker, you'll see if you have an active power shard, you can claim a bonus of resources by spending the power shard and flipping it to its used side. In this case, you'd collect 2 nitrogen. If this were available, you'd collect 2 food and flip it. This one's interesting because you spend a power shard to gain a power shard, but it's a new power shard you can place wherever you'd like. After your room produces, you're going to rest your colonists. As you take your actions, you're going to be sending your colonists out into the world of Arkosa. And when they come back, they're tired. They have to rest. Sometimes they get injured, and when that happens, resting does not bring them back to your hand. So, let's talk about the actions you can take real briefly. When it's your turn, you can build a room. This simply happens by paying the cost on the right side of these tokens. On the top right of the token, you'll see where this awards you victory points at the end of the game, or reputation. On the bottom right, you'll see the cost, and on the bottom left, you'll see the reward you gain when this activates. And on the top left, you'll see a type of room. There are 3 types represented by colors and symbols: blue, green, and orange. The green symbol represents labor, the blue symbol represents science, and the orange symbol represents entertainment. As you place rooms into your bunker, they must go from top to bottom. As you place them, you can cover existing rooms or place them in the next most space. Matching colors give you additional bonuses, and when you cover certain symbols, you gain the reward. Rooms can only be activated again if you have an active power shard placed on them. So again, that's the first action you can take, building a room. The next action you can take is making a trade. This occurs down here in this bottom right section of the board. You can trade a food for a nitrogen or a nitrogen for a food in this reserve. If you happen to trade a nitrogen for a food and later want to trade for nitrogen, you cannot because there is no nitrogen in the reserve. Alternately, you can spend a nitrogen or a food to collect what is called a scrap. You can spend a nitrogen and a food to collect a mag tape. Or if you have a colonist who is injured, you can spend a nitrogen or a food to collect a healing card. These healing cards sometimes heal, sometimes don't, and sometimes give you something different entirely. This one allows you to heal an injured colonist as well as go up in morale. The next action you can take is not available in round 1, but is available in rounds 2 and 3. That is the make a bribe action. When you make a bribe, you simply collect a bribe card, and that is the action. You can take, I believe, only one bribe per turn, and these bribe cards simply will be victory points at the end of the game if you have the resources available to pay for them at the end. The last action you can take is sending a colonist to work. Here's one example of a colonist. When you send a colonist to work, you'll see there are multiple actions to pick from. You may select one action for most of the colonists. There are a few exceptions. This colonist in particular allows you to simply collect 2 nitrogen, or go out on an expedition with a blue colored backpack. You'll also see right on the right side of that blue backpack there is a food that allows you to collect whatever you are collecting with a discount of 1 food. Suppose this is the colonist that I am playing and I am choosing my backpack action. It is a blue backpack. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose where out here I'm going to visit. Your bunkers are represented here at the bottom of the board. As you send your colonists out, the further they go, the more difficult it is. Thus, different color backpacks will allow you to only go so far. You must have a red colored backpack to visit these locations. Red and blue allow you to visit these locations, and the red, blue, and brown allow you to visit these locations. So your red backpack will let you go the furthest. What happens when you send a colonist out to work is you will either be collecting resources in these locations, or you'll be collecting a new colonist to add to your hand. When you successfully collect a colonist, they enter your hand immediately and can be played on subsequent actions. But be careful, the further out you go, the more likely there are bad things to happen. Each of these locations has a number associated with them. Based on the number you land on, you've got to move this token along this track. This is going to trigger events. We've got the green events, the orange events, the red events, and raids. Something bad always occurs during raids. Something bad usually occurs with a red event. Something bad frequently occurs with the orange, and something bad sometimes occurs with the green. Other times, good things will happen. The events are quite interesting. They add a lot of flavor to the game, and they add a lot of story element to the game. And some of the cards end up actually being objects that you get to keep and use during the game. There are quite a lot of these event cards, which gives you a lot of variation in the game, which I really like. The further along this track you go, the more likely you are to run into bad things, but the more likely you are to get what you want out here. Now, lastly, I'll point out down here, this bottom board here is for players who are newer to the game. It's side A. Side A is the same for every player. This board up here allows for varied play. You'll see a little star here. This indicates that you're going to have a unique room to you that you start with on your board. In addition, you'll have different rewards that you can collect for filling out your bunker. And lastly, you're going to have a unique character that has its own asymmetric ability. You'll also start with different resources and a different morale count than other players. That pretty much sums up the overview for Arkosa. So let's take a look at how I rank it. For agency, I give Arkosa a 7. You have a fair amount of control over what you do in the game, however, the event cards are kind of a hit or miss. It's kind of based on luck. But set that aside and you've got a fair amount of control over what you're doing in the game. For balance, I give Arkosa yet another 7. The game feels fairly balanced overall. There was a gap of probably 30 points between first and last place when I played a 3-player game recently. Not the worst. For components, I give the game a 7. The tokens are your typical cardboard type of token. The cards are good quality. The player boards are cardboard. And then you've got the wood discs and cubes for different tracks. Not a bad quality. I've seen better, but it's not bad. Ease of learning, I give Arkosa a 7. Arkosa really isn't too difficult to learn. I brought Arkosa to a convention where some people played with me, and they were just kind of getting into the world of board gaming. And a young teenager played and was able to handle the game just fine. As far as interesting decisions and the impact they make, I give Arkosa yet another 7. The decisions you make do feel interesting, and the events that occur are fun. I find myself drawn to try and make events happen, even though they're based on luck and I don't really get to make a lot of decisions with them. You do get to make some decisions with some of the events where you choose to take one of 3 options. For game mechanics, I give Arkosa an 8. Arkosa makes interesting use of the colonist cards with a little bit of set collection combined with building out your bunker. It has a good variety of mechanics, and I feel like they work well together and keep the game interesting. For overall satisfaction, I give Arkosa an 8. It is a game that I do find myself wanting to come back to. I've played it a few times and I enjoy it quite well. For replayability, I give Arkosa a 7. I like that you have a unique action that only you can take when you use the variable characters. And I like that there are variable player boards that give you a unique room that only you will ever have in a game. The events add for some good variation, and you'll have different colonists that come out each game. Overall, it feels replayable. I've seen other games that have a higher replayability, but this is still pretty good. Lastly, the weight of the game, I give it a 9. I enjoy mid to heavy games usually, and this feels like a good solid mid. I enjoy the weight quite well. If I've done my math correctly, that gives Arkosa a score of 74 out of 100. It's a great game. I enjoy it. I like coming back to it. If you've ever played Arkosa before, I'd love to know how you would rank it. Feel free to use my same 10 categories for ranking, or just give it a score out of 100 yourself. Let me know in the comments what you would rank Arkosa. I'd love to hear from you. Also, let me know how you feel about my ranking system. It's a brand new thing I've started doing, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you hate it? Do you like it? What do you think? That's everything I've got for you today on Arkosa. Thanks for joining me, and I will catch you in the next one.